Welcome to the deep dive. We sift through the sources, cut through the noise, and bring you the core insights you need. Today we're looking at a figure who really reshaped ancient Greece, but maybe doesn't get the same spotlight as, say, Alcibiades. We're talking about Lysander, a master strategist, a deal maker, and, let's be honest, often pretty ruthless. We're digging into his story, using a detailed Wikipedia entry as our guide, trying to unpack his rise, his impact, and, well, his controversial legacy. Our mission, to figure out how he ended the massive Peloponnesian War, set up Spartan dominance, and left such a mark.
Absolutely. Lysander, Spartan commander, statesman, he was just crucial for Sparta's final victory. But what really sets him apart, I think, is his ambition. It wasn't just about winning. He had this vision, this idea of replacing the entire Athenian empire with Spartan hegemony. That was a step beyond what most Spartans were thinking.
All right, so the question for you listening is, how did this guy, from what sounds like pretty humble beginnings, climb so high? How did he completely change the map, politically speaking?
Yeah.
And what does his story tell us about leadership, maybe ambition, and how history remembers people? Let's find out.
Okay, so Lysander's early life. It's a bit murky, but what we do know is pretty interesting. Born around 454 BC. His father, Aristocratus, part of the Heraclidae, descended from Heracles, noble lineage, but definitely not Spartan royalty. And then there's this persistent rumor that his mother might have been a helot, a slave. Plutarch mentions him growing up poor.
Yeah, poor, but with, as Plutarch puts it, obedience and a manly spirit.
Yeah.
Quite the starting point. And that background, it's important context. It also connects to that Spartan custom, the Aeschylus, the inspirer or mentor role, sometimes called a lover, too, in that specific mentorship sense. It was this really deep personal bond. And Lysander apparently was the Aeschylus for the future king Agesilaus II.
Oh, which hints at, these complex personal ties weaving through Spartan politics. It definitely affected their relationship later on.
It's still pretty amazing, though, isn't it? Almost nothing is known about his career before bam. He's elected admiral in 408 BC, right in the middle of the war. How does someone without that long public track record, especially not being royal, suddenly get such a huge job?
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Maybe Sparta just needed someone different, someone who understood the sea, diplomacy, maybe even money. Things that weren't necessarily traditional Spartan strengths. And Lysander, he seemed to have that mix. Once he got the job, he moved fast, got 30 triremes together from Gythium, sailed the Aegean, and crucially, he sets up Ephesus as the main Peloponnesian League naval base in the region. Smart move. Strategic hub.
And it wasn't just ships. This is where his skill in diplomacy and finance really comes into play. He meets Cyrus the Younger.
Right, son of the Persian king Darius II. Cyrus was there to basically boost Persian aid to Sparta.
So Lysander goes to Sardis, meets him, and apparently uses this calculated deference, really impresses the young prince.
He did. They formed this close friendship, which turned out to be absolutely vital. Yeah, pivotal is the word, because that friendship meant serious cash for Sparta. Cyrus agreed to up the pay for Lysander's crews, went from 3 obols to 4.
Well, okay.
Think about it. Better pay means happier sailors, fewer desertions, a better fighting force. And importantly for Lysander, it made him incredibly popular with his own men, built loyalty.
But he didn't stop there. His political game was strong, too. Back in Ephesus, he calls together all these powerful oligarchs from different Greek cities. He gets them to form these things called heteriot, basically political clubs, and he makes them a promise.
A very tempting promise. Help me beat Athens, and I'll put you in charge of your cities afterwards.
Exactly. So he's building this personal network, people loyal directly to him, not just to Sparta as a state. It's quite innovative, really. You could already see his tactical mind at work earlier, like at the Battle of Notium in 406 BC. Alcibiades is leading the Athenian fleet nearby. Lysander has his ships in Ephesus, but he doesn't jump into a big battle straight away.
No, he was way too clever for that. He used those higher wages, the ones funded by Cyrus, to tempt Athenian sailors to desert, just weaken them bit by bit. He was patient, waited for his chance. It came when an Athenian officer, actually against orders, attacked a small group of Peloponnesian ships. Lysander saw the opening, ordered his whole fleet in, and routed them. Wasn't a massive battle, maybe, but a significant win.
And it hurt Alcibiades badly, right? Contributed to his final fall from grace.
It definitely did. Bad timing for Alcibiades.
But then Lysander hits a snag. This quirky Spartan law. You can't be admiral twice in a row, so he has to step down. Callicratidas replaces him. But get this, before he leaves, Lysander gives all the Persian money back to Cyrus.
Yeah, which sounds noble maybe, but it was pure calculation. He basically kneecapped his successor. Callicratidas couldn't fund the fleet properly.
It just shows his ambition, doesn't it? Willing to hinder the war effort, temporarily at least, to ensure he remained indispensable.
But he wasn't gone for long. Callicratidas was killed in battle. And then both Cyrus and Lysander's oligarch network basically demanded Sparta send Lysander back.
So they wanted him back specifically.
They did. Powerful backing. Spartan law was still an issue, so they used a workaround. He was made a Pistolius, like a chief of staff's second in command. The new admiral was a guy named Arachis, but everyone knew Lysander was really running the show. He went back to Ephesus, got Cyrus's full support again, and started rebuilding the fleet.
And his return seems to mark a shift towards even more ruthless methods. While rebuilding the fleet, he goes to Miletus, supposedly an ally, and during a festival, he arranges this massacre of leading Democrats, just wipes them out to install his own oligarchic supporters.
Yeah, that was brutal. Even for Spartan standards, his systematic replacement of governments with his own loyalists was intense. It wasn't just about winning battles anymore. Around this time, his big benefactor, Cyrus, gets called away. His father, King Darius, is dying. But before Cyrus leaves, he does something extraordinary. He hands over his entire treasury and all the revenues from the Persian cities he controlled directly to Lysander.
Wow. That's incredible trust and power.
Immense. Shows you just how much Cyrus believed in him and how much influence Lysander now wielded.
So the stage is set. Lysander sails out with maybe 125, 150 ships. Early on, more brutality, massacring and enslaving the people of Isis and Sadria, Athenian allies. Then he heads for the Hellespont. This is crucial because it threatens Athens' grain supply from the Black Sea.
Exactly, a direct threat to their survival. The Athenian fleet, all 180 ships, has to follow him.
They end up facing each other across the strait. Lysander at Lampsacus, which he plunders, the Athenians at Aegospotami.
And Lysander plays a waiting game again. For days, he refuses battle, just watches them, studies their routines, until he spots his moment. The Athenians are careless. Most of their crews are ashore, foraging, unprepared. Lysander attacks. Swift. Total surprise. Catches them completely unmanned, as the sources say, destroys the entire fleet, 180 ships gone. Just like that.
And that?
Yeah.
That was basically the end of the Peloponnesian War. Decades of fighting over in one decisive, ruthless move. Athenian sea power shattered.
An absolute turning point. Complete command of the sea. So Lysander goes on this victory tour around the Aegean, cities surrender, and his plan for Athens itself, brutal but strategically brilliant. He orders all the captured Athenian garrisons, any Athenian colonists he finds, send them all back to Athens.
Why? To overcrowd the city.
Precisely. Deliberately engineer famine and hasten their surrender. Clinical. Ruthless. Effective.
And this wasn't just military dominance, it was political reshaping. In city after city, he kicks out the existing governments and installs Dicarches.
Right, these 10-man boards, all picked from his hetairai, those political clubs he'd set up. His guys.
Backed by a Spartan military governor, a harmist. Anyone who resisted, especially Democrats, massacred or banished.
Though he did make some gestures, like restoring populations the Athenians had kicked out from places like Aegina. A bit of propaganda, maybe, presenting himself as a liberator to some. But the fall of Athens itself, spring 404 BC, that's the image that sticks. Lysander sails into the Piraeus, Athens port, and he does it on the anniversary of the Battle of Salamis.
Wow, the ultimate symbolic insult. Salamis was Athens' greatest naval triumph.
Exactly. Then he orders the long walls torn down, the fleet burned, and that detail. He brings in female flute players to provide music while the walls are being destroyed.
Just rubbing it in. Pure political theater. After that, he presides over the Athenian assembly, gets them to vote away their own democracy, replaces it with the 30 tyrants.
Infamous. A board of 30 oligarchs loyal to Sparta, or rather loyal to Lysander's system.
And he ties up loose ends, too. Arranges for his old rival, Alcibiades, who's in exile trying to get Persian help to be assassinated.
Yeah, removes any potential threat. Very thorough, very ruthless. But here's a really significant consequence, something that changes Sparta itself. Lysander brings back enormous wealth, spoils of war, money. Now, for centuries, private money had been illegal in Sparta. Austerity, military virtue, that was the ideal. But, the new navy needed funding.
So money starts flowing in.
It does. And Plutarch, writing later, really condemns this. He argues that just having the money around corrupted ordinary Spartans,
Hmm.
broke down the old discipline. We even see examples like General Gylippus caught embezzling treasure he was supposed to bring home, sentenced to death for it.
So it immediately starts causing problems, introduces temptation, greed into this famously austere society. And Lysander's group wasn't absolute. Cracks started appearing. You get this democratic resistance led by an Athenian general, Thrasybulus. He'd been exiled by the 30 tyrants.
hmm In 403 BC, Thrasybulus leads a small force back into Attica, fights a couple of battles. He actually defeats a Spartan garrison, and then he defeats the forces of the oligarchs, Lysander's guys, in the Battle of Munichia. Cretius, the head tyrant, gets killed.
That's a major blow to Lysander's setup.
It is. The Spartans send more troops and defeat the exiles in another battle near Piraeus. But then something unexpected happens. King Pausanias of Sparta steps in. And despite Lysander arguing against it, Pausanias negotiates a settlement.
A settlement? What kind?
One that actually allowed democracy to be restored in Athens. A huge reversal.
Wow. So even within Sparta, there were limits to how far they'd back Lysander's personal project. A real check on his power. But he still had clout back home. He was key in getting Agesilaus II, remember, his former protege, the one he mentored, selected as the next Spartan king.
Right after King Aegeus II died.
And he also convinced Sparta to back Cyrus the Younger's rebellion against his brother, Artaxerxes.
Right.
That didn't end well for Cyrus, but it shows Lysander was still influencing big decisions.
Definitely. And he was still trying to push his own agenda. He engineers this situation where Agesilaus gets command of the Greek forces fighting against Persia over in Asia Minor, around 396 BC. Lysander probably figured this would give him an opportunity, maybe command of other forces, let him rebuild his network of oligarchies.
Ah, but here's where the protege turns on the mentor. Agesilaus apparently was getting tired of Lysander acting like he was the real power behind the throne.
Resentful, yeah.
So Agesilaus deliberately thwarts Lysander's plans. He sidelines him, gives him some command way up in the Hellespont, far from the main action, far from Sparta.
A very clear message, a power struggle right at the top. Agesilaus putting his old mentor in his place, and these internal tensions spill over. Back in Sparta by 395 BC, Lysander is apparently a key figure in pushing for a new war, this time against Thebes and its allies. This becomes the Corinthian War. Sparta starts gearing up to fight this new coalition. Athens is back in the game, Thebes, Corinth, Argos, and they've got Persian backing this time. Agesilaus gets recalled from Asia Minor.
And this leads to Lysander's final act, the Battle of Haliartus, 395 BC. Sparta plans a two-pronged attack on the Boeotian city of Haliartus. One army under Lysander, one under King Pausanias. They're supposed to meet up. Lysander gets there first. True to form, he persuades another city, Orchomenus, to revolt against the Boeotians. Then he marches on Haliartus.
But he gets too close to the walls, makes a tactical error. The Thebans inside attack, and Lysander is killed in the fighting.
Just like that, a sudden end. A fatal miscalculation for a man known for his meticulous planning.
And even after he's dead, the intrigue continues. Agesilaus II, his rival, claims to discover this plot Lysander supposedly hatched, a scheme to change the Spartan kingship itself, make it collective, maybe elective, take away the king's automatic command of the army, basically a power grab.
Was it real?
Yeah.
Or just Agesilaus trying to smear his dead rival?
Historians still debate it, but, as Nigel Kennel points out, the alleged plot does kind of fit with what we know about Lysander's personality, his ambition, so maybe. It adds another layer of controversy to his legacy.
So wrapping this all up, Lysander, what a figure. Brilliant strategist, absolutely ruthless. He makes Sparta the top dog in Greece. But in the process, he introduces things, money, maybe corruption, extreme political manipulation that kind of undermine traditional Spartan ways. Master of war, master of politics.
His legacy is just so mixed. Cornelius Nepos, the Roman writer, calls him cruel and perfidious. But Xenophon, who knew the era, points out he sometimes spared populations. And then you have this extraordinary fact. Cities apparently set up altars to him, sacrificed to him like a god. The first Greek to receive that honor, according to Joris of Samos. They even renamed the festival of Hera in Samos the Lysandreia. That's huge. Shows incredible prestige, even a reverence despite everything else.
And those sayings attributed to him, they just capture him perfectly. Where the lion's skin does not reach, it must be patched with the fox's. Genius.
Pure pragmatism.
And boasting about cheating boys with knuckle bones and men with oaths tells you everything about his cynical view of the world, maybe. So thinking about Lysander really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is achieving that level of success, that kind of world-changing power, worth the compromises? Do the ends justify means that are, well, often brutal and deceptive? His life kind of throws that question right at you. Can someone be admired and hated for the exact same reasons? A liberator to some, a tyrant to others? Definitely something to chew on long after this deep dive.